I know I told you a long time ago about the reason I quit Starbucks, but did I ever tell you the in-depth version? Because believe it or not, that story and those reasons have influenced the way that I do business and the way that I work even years later. The year was 2019 and I had just recently transferred universities as a sophomore. I was working at a Starbucks location right off campus. Summer of 2019 was probably the worst time in my life. I just got to a new university. I was feeling very lost, very confused. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. You know, all the typical 19-year-old feelings. With all that going on, I had a lot of mental health stuff that I was working through on my own. There was one day in particular, I was going into my shift at Starbucks and I was just so down bad in the brain. I just could not fathom going there for 8 hours and being treated like shit. Ended up calling my manager that day and I talked to her and I was like, listen, I am just not in a good headspace right now. Can I switch my shift with somebody? Because there's just no way that I can come in today. I was told that day on the phone that mental health is not an excuse to not show up. As I'm sure you can imagine, I quit the company shortly after that and have never returned. In 2021, I ended up making the move off of campus to the city of Chicago and found myself at a local cafe here in the city. I got to a point in the spring of 2024 where I had a decision to make. I was nearing 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, all of my platforms were growing, and I really do think there's something to be said about us as human beings being afraid of our own potential and being afraid of our own success. I was at a pivotal moment where I could keep progressing into the unknown and keep building what I had already been building, or I could take a part-time barista position and go back to what I knew. Well, I did the latter, and I ended up working at a coffee shop part-time for about 3 weeks. I have an entire YouTube video on how popped that experience was, so if you want to know the nitty-gritty, you can go check that out. All in all, not a great experience, but it did teach me something very valuable, and it was something that piggybacked off of what I had already learned from my previous coffee shops. Right after I left that coffee shop and hung my apron up for the very last time, I immediately started working on Sips, and the rest is history. Let me be the first one to say that sometimes the scariest thing you can do is believe in yourself. Now, I'm telling you all of that because I have a point to make. After spending years inside of different coffee shops with different companies, local and corporate, there's one thing that I learned coming out of those experiences, and that is treat the people who are working for you kindly. When I spoke to my Starbucks manager and trusted her enough to tell her that I was really struggling with my mental health, I was looking for empathy and compassion in that moment. I was met with judgment and ridicule. That completely changed the way I viewed my job. When you treat people with respect, compassion, empathy, and kindness, it's amazing how far you will get. It's having love and compassion and respect for humanity versus viewing people as just a money-making machine. All that to say, be nice to your baristas. You have no idea what they're going through. And yeah, just be good to people in general because it does pay dividends. Cheers.